All right, I come from the state of Pennsylvania originally, and I was hanging out there around the Pittsburgh area where my dad's from. And there's this old story there that some of the old Union boys carry that never made it in the history books. And it's probably because it was like warfare. It was the strikers were taking on the National Guard. And none of the cops would do anything about the strike on the railroad workers. The railroad workers, they didn't want to go out with trains that were twice as big, twice as long, double engines, called them double headers. And they didn't want to go out with those because it meant a lot of men would die on the rail tracks. But the company said they had to do it. And so one day, one of the brakemen just walked off the job. He just walked away, and 100 men followed him. They all gathered in the rail yard. And the cops wouldn't do anything, so the company called in the National Guard on them. They all went out on the railroad tracks. They watched that train steaming down that narrow Monongahela Valley, which people in Pittsburgh call it the Mong. And they all got out in front of the train. All the kids and mostly the women and the kids got out first because they figured they'd be okay. But somebody fired, and the National Guard mowed down a whole bunch of them. And it brought out all the miners came out of the hills, all the mills shut down, and people grabbed their rifles and their pitchforks and their shovels and whatever they had, and they went down to try and beat back the National Guard. They had all these cannons up on the hillside, left over from the Civil War, just sitting around. So the National Guard pointed those cannons at the people. But they didn't think for 1 minute that all them strikers would just go up the hill, grab the cannons, bring them back down, and put them on the rails. And they ran those boys out of town. And this is a story of that. Great strike of 1877 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is a song called Pennsylvania Railyard. Early in the morning, when the man refused to board, saying double headers will not leave the Pennsylvania rail yard, Pennsylvania rail yard. 100 strong they gathered in the early morning sun. Time to flip switches near, single train shall run, near single train shall run. All the city officers refused to move the crowd, so the strikers held the depot and the Pennsylvania rail yard, Pennsylvania rail yard. So the company called the governor just to give their horn a blow. The governor sent the National Guard, the Pennsylvania rail yard, Pennsylvania Railyard. All the men that gathered, and their wives and children all, to see the wretched soldiers steaming in along the Mong, steaming in along the Mong. No one knows who fired when the crowd had stopped the train. When the guardsmen opened up, young and old were slain. Many young and old were slain. Miners and the mill hands with their rifles on the backs, they all came to the platform, try to drive the soldiers back, try to drive the soldiers back. The soldiers, they had cannons, so the strikers took the hills, tamed the horses, hauled them down, placed them on the rails, placed them all along the rails. See them soldiers running in the roundhouse they did hide, rolling, burning oil tanker, set the roundhouse fire, oh, set the roundhouse fire. Burned 100 rail cars and the Union Depot too, and all the Pittsburgh gazed upon the fires burning through, oh, the fires burning through. Yeah, to see them soldiers running way back to Uniontown. Strikers followed close behind, Cannon's coming round. Oh, the cannon's coming round. You know those days were numbered, was the closest thing to hell. And a long time since heard the news of 1877. Oh, of 1877. True story.